The Design Convo Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Design Convo podcast, where we interact with creative individuals from the design industry to learn the things that otherwise are a bit difficult to understand on your own, especially when we are starting as designers. The show will be a safe space where we ask questions that might sound silly, but make a huge difference in our lives. I'm your host Shakti Hari, and I'm going to ask the questions on everyone's behalf. I'm doing really great today. So for this week's episode, we have a fantastic illustrator slash visual designer, a creative coder, animator who's also gearing up his 3D skills lately. So the man's work speak for themselves. For the bright colors he uses in his designs light up the consumer or the viewer. If you're using Swiggy and you love the beautiful visuals in the app, this man is one of the designers who's responsible for the delight that the app delivers. I can't tell you how excited I am to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Shivam Taplier. Welcome to the podcast, Shivam. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much.
Let me start with can you tell us who's Shivam? Where is he based out of, and how did he become a designer?
So my name is Shyam Taplyal. I work as
Mm-hmm.
a senior product illustrator
Mm-hmm.
with Swiggy. It's been
Okay.
1.5 years since I joined,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually like an engineer by choice also. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
graduated in 2017 as a computer science engineer, and
Mm-hmm.
after that I did for 6 months backend development.
Mm-hmm.
Post which I felt like I had more to contribute in design and illustrations, and that is when I joined Flipkart in 2018 around March as
Mm-hmm.
intern, and then I converted to full time. And after 2 years spending with Flipkart, I then joined Swiggy.
Okay. All right. So you are a computer engineer. So I had a chance to go through your profile and stalk you on LinkedIn and whatnot. What the hell were you doing with DRDO as an intern?
So so it was an internship with in third year. So as engineering graduates, you are supposed to do one internship in third year. I
Mm-hmm.
was doing with IRD, DRDO. I was working on some image processing backend related stuff, computer graphics. Yeah, so that was I don't know why it exists, but yeah, it happened. It was fun actually, like to
Okay.
go to their offices of and meet scientists.
Okay. All right. So for the listeners, if you don't know what DRDO is, please Google it. It's the Defense Research and Development Organization. It's a government agency basically taking care of the defense system for India. So they develop all these missiles, uh, I don't know, fighter jets, etc. So creative coding to designing. Why did you choose design over development, Shivam? What excites you to create designs, create stuff?
It is possibly because like in my college, uh, I was doing a lot of illustrations in like second year, third year, fourth year, right? And towards fourth year, good things started to happen. Like I got featured in a couple of
Mm-hmm.
magazines and interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is like one of the reasons where I felt like if I were to be an engineer, I know I
Mm-hmm.
will be a good engineer, but
Okay.
it will be just one more engineer in the world. And when I thought of like illustration, I felt like there I would be able to add more value, and I'm good at it, and I'm doing great at it. Then why not
Mm-hmm.
uh, go this route?
Okay. So it was just
So
like a leap of faith. You just decided one
yes,
day to
it was
become a designer.
actually Yes, it was actually a huge leap of faith. So I felt like I had more to contribute in design, and I took a huge
Hmm.
leap of faith in a sense that I was actually working in Chandigarh as a backend developer. And
Of
at that
course.
time, Flipkart approached me that hey, somebody had reached out that would you be interested in Flipkart. At that time, the Flipkart got a new design manager, like in a sense, a
Mm-hmm.
head of design. And
Mm-hmm.
then I cleared the round. I was like, let's see what happens if I'll be able to clear the round or not. And
Okay.
after a couple of weeks, they came back that, we want to fly you down to Bangalore, and
Mm-hmm.
would you be interested in opportunity? It all happened. They kind of, offered me internship, and I was really very excited. But the choice that I had to make was to firstly leave a company where I'm working full time as a developer and join
Of
somewhere as
course.
an intern, as an illustrator, and check the field if I'll do great. So it was a really huge decision in terms of like talking to my family as well. But
Mm-hmm.
luckily they were very supportive, and I had to really think about it for a couple of days. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I and what really mattered was, I'm young. I
Mm-hmm.
know the skills in even coding as well. So let's give it
Mm-hmm.
a try. If it doesn't work out, I'll come back, or I'll join somewhere as a developer. So but
Mm-hmm.
at least in future I would not have this regret that I had an opportunity to work with Flipkart, and I kind of rejected it. So yeah,
Okay.
I made that decision, and probably one of the best decisions in my life, and I don't regret it at all.
Of
And
course, man.
here we are discussing about it.
Of course, of course. Um, when you say you code, right? Do you also
Yeah.
code web experiences? How is creative coding different from coding for experiences and developing tools?
So creative coding, like it's in a way like working somewhere in the intersection of art and like art and technology, and somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in design. But when you are kind of developing tools, there probably the idea is to make the feature live, right? The idea is to
Mm-hmm.
get things like to get the app functional. Then the next term comes is delight. And when you say
Mm-hmm.
about delight, then creative coding is one of the aspects.
Okay.
I do make web experiences, but because like primarily I'm working as like an illustrator and a visual designer, I don't like post
Mm-hmm.
it online. I do have
Mm-hmm.
like a sketchbook online where I put some of my creative coding sketches. But lately, a lot has been happening, and there's a lot on my plate. So it's like constant prioritization and reminding myself that this is great. Probably
Mm-hmm.
not at the moment. So as much as I
Okay.
would like to do more on creative coding,
Okay.
I have not been able to make time for that. But yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's pretty fun,
Okay.
because if you know design, if you know how
Okay.
to code, like you are indispensable. Like you can make things that nobody else can,
Of course. Yeah.
because understanding both of these things and doing them well is like a great skill set to have, that will kind of separate you from the market very clearly.
Hmm. That's what I would call a full stack designer.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. All right. And believe me, I don't know shit about coding. All right. But while going through your profile, I noticed something you worked on. So the project name actually goes by hand gesture based drawing application in JavaScript. Tell us about it.
So this was in my college, right? Like
Okay.
I was a kid. So in college, I was a very timid person. I would not
Mm-hmm.
socialize much.
Okay.
Not that I do it now, but I'm a very socially awkward person who can't walk into a room full of strangers and be very open to talking to anybody. I would feel shy. So it was
Okay.
same in college. So I would
Mm-hmm.
used to so I used to be in my room learning a tool, Illustrator, or doing something. So this was like a project which I had pitched to one of the computer science professor in IIT Roorkee,
Mm-hmm.
because I am from a college in Roorkee. I can't mention the
Mm-hmm.
name, but
Okay.
I had made this where like in JavaScript only you can point to your webcam, and it will kind of track your hand, and that
Mm-hmm.
it could have some gesture based applications made on. So this I had
Okay.
specifically made and pitched to IIT Roorkee professor.
Mhm.
after which he invited me to work with him. So
Okay.
yeah, that was that was a project which I did in college.
All right. All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that. Uh,
Yeah.
when you actually say becoming a full stack designer by actually doing creative coding, right? Uh,
Hmm.
so the tool Webflow comes to my mind when I actually
Hmm.
see what you're doing. So
Hmm.
it is handing over the power of developing to the designers
Hmm.
and even the non-designers.
Yeah.
So how hard will it be, or let me put it this way: do you think this particular skill set or the people will this particular skill set will be replaced by technology at any point?
I see. I have not used Webflow firstly to even begin with,
Okay.
but
All right.
I definitely think it's not going to replace anyone,
Okay.
right? If you know how, I mean, Webflow is a tool. It is also made by some developer, right? Who knows
Of
how to
course.
code, who understand
Yeah.
graphic. So
Yeah.
imagine if you know how to code, and
Hmm.
you can walk in any company and say, I don't even need Webflow because I know
Hmm.
how the logic works. Like I know
Hmm.
the base algorithm. Then like you can even replace somebody at Webflow who's making these things, right? Like it's as simple as that. Like
Of
tools
course.
come and tools go, right?
Hmm.
The core technology and the core algorithm or the core
Hmm.
logic will always remain the same, right? It can
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
change. You might be
Yeah.
using Illustrator, you might be using Affinity Pro or whatever you want to, but if you
Hmm.
know how to work with like a pen tool, you would know irrespective of the tool. But yeah, it also poses a really good power to non-designers, like, or
Hmm.
even designers who don't know how to code, because
Hmm.
it just takes away that separation, that the coding or the creative coding is like that thick layer of understanding how to code, and then it
Hmm.
just makes it all about experience. So
Yeah.
while it is providing power to a lot of designers, it's not
Hmm.
taking away somebody's power, it's not taking or replacing somebody. That is what, like, I think.
Yeah. That's a great perspective, man. And
Yeah.
I have an interesting question to follow up on this. Let me come back to it. So you have been working really hard on building a range of skills, including 3D design,
Yeah.
creative coding, and you already excel at illustrations, right? So basically, you have
Yeah.
everything required to be a successful independent designer or a freelancer. So why did you choose to work with a company rather than be on your own?
Oh, that's a really good question. But I had, even like before joining, like before even I became started my design career, I was hundred
Mhm.
percent sure like what I want to do and what I don't want to do. That is the
Mhm.
most important part.
Okay.
So I wanted to work somewhere full time. I did not want to
Okay.
be a part of agency. I did not want to be a part of like a freelance. The
Okay.
problem, the the problem with freelance, at least for me as an individual, is like there is uncertainty for tomorrow, right? Like
Hmm.
today you
Yeah.
might have 10 10 folks that you're working with. Tomorrow you might not, right?
Yeah.
You might need to and this was like 4 years back, right? When I
Hmm.
had just started and things. So some of my opinions have changed, some of them are still the same. But I feel like when you're a freelancer, it is not just about the skill, it is also
Hmm.
about managing projects. It's also about reaching out to clients, it's also about pitching to them. So that
Hmm.
felt like something I don't want to. I in early career, and at least even till today, I want to, like, push myself, learn a lot, and get skills as much as I could at this age,
Hmm.
so that later I don't have to feel like that, okay, this is lacking or something like that. So for now I want to learn as much as I can, and in
Hmm.
order to do that, if I have to worry about tomorrow I don't have a client, and I have to worry about, oh, how is this going, how am I going to get the payment, he's not paying me, I have to follow up. That is something which is not I'm interested in. And it also comes from a part of my personality, which is like I'm very socially awkward person. So I
Okay.
can't reach out to somebody and ping them constantly throughout the week. And that
Okay.
and the second reason why I joined corporate was because I had did internship.
Mm.
I love the scale at which you work, and you are also granted with the power of decision making. The
Mm.
problem with agencies is, a I had heard some reviews, the experience, and because of which I felt like probably not a place where want I could survive, or where I would want to be. And
Mm.
the second reason is, when I worked as an intern in Flipkart, I realized the scale at which you get to solve the problem, be the kind of ownership you get. You are a product illustrator, you can make a recommendation that this doesn't work, this works. And
Mm.
when you overlook the entire product illustration library, you kind of realize how exciting the problem is to solve, right? That I don't see happening with the agencies, because it's a client, and it's a client service relationship, right?
Mm.
Where
Mm.
there is a client service relationship, client can say to you that, no, 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 we want specifically like this only. So
Yeah.
even you might, as an agency, have a valid point,
Yeah.
or you might be proposing a better design. The
Hmm.
client will always say that I want this, and you will have to kind of somewhere agree. If
Okay.
you're working in an org, sometimes you can say that, do we even need these 10 illustrations, or do we even need these 10 icons? Agency most likely will never say that these 10 icons are not required, because they would not have the full context. So I did want to work in a full time where I can really understand the skill set well. And in order to do so, it had to be joining somewhere. And I think I
Okay.
really enjoy working in a corporate. And apart from like core skill set, there are a lot of other things that it has to offer. Like you get to be surrounded with talented folk all the time, and that is a really great thing. And you make connections, you understand product, and yeah, it is like fun that way.
Fair enough. That is a reasonable answer, man. Uh,
Hmm.
Fighting uncertainty is something which even I struggle with. So, in fact,
Hmm.
we share something in common. So I didn't go full time freelance due to the same reasons. But
Hmm.
yeah, that is totally understandable. Yeah, and you know what? I think you are building a talent directory for designers using Google Forms on your Instagram. What is this about, and
Yeah.
why are you doing it?
So see, this there's a huge gap in like in this industry in terms of illustration.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say illustration, I specifically mean product illustration, or illustration for tech. So there
Mm-hmm.
are absolutely great illustrators based out of Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, and I know a lot of them. But when comes to illustration for tech, I don't see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people doing that. I know
Okay.
a handful of people, those who have done in this field, and I'm lucky enough that one of them was my mentor in my early days. Her name is
Okay.
Aisha Rana, and
Mm-hmm.
recently my manager at Swiggy was Snehal Patel. So these two are
Okay.
the folks that I know since the starting. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and yeah, these, I mean, there are many folks, but I can't find them. I don't know why. And because of this reason, what happened, uh, a lot of folks reach out to me on LinkedIn, or in my own company sometimes, when we are looking for an illustrator, or somebody, or ex-colleague who has joined somewhere else. They will look out for an illustrator or a visual designer, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to find. It's very hard to find. So people reach out to me or somebody else, and I don't have an answer. Like, I just know a handful. So I thought, like, this is a problem, right? This is a problem. If there are not enough folks in visual design or in illustration in tech, like, who's going to help?
Yeah.
Who is the one who will reach out to? So I kind of put together a library, like a Google form. I felt like that is the most easy way, and I did not want to put a lot of effort into, like, making a website or something. So
Mm-hmm.
I just put a form together and floated it around. So yeah, that was pretty amazing. The response was a lot. I saw the
Mhm.
other day, and I think I had more than 200 response, and I haven't opened it in for a couple of days. So I think at least
Okay.
250 plus responses that I had got.
Mhm.
In
Amazing.
those responses as well, yeah, the diversity in terms of product illustration is very low. I would say around
Mhm.
10% only were illustration profile that I could find.
Okay.
So that seems to be a concern, that why aren't people like excited about product illustration. And also because this is a field which is still forming and coming up. There is some work to be done in terms of evangelizing this
Mhm.
field. So that is also one of the things that I think. But I have seen recently a couple of folks reaching out to me that I'm an illustrator, and
Mhm.
I want to switch to product illustration. This sounds exciting. How can I make the
Mhm.
change? So it's great that people are now talking about it, and hopefully people would want to join somewhere and learn the skills of product illustration.
Of course. That is a brilliant answer. Of course, I have a follow up question for this. So,
Yes.
see, what I understand from the design industry, especially in our country, right? So, most of
Hmm.
the companies or the tech firms that are starting up or that are scaling up, so these firms have smaller design teams, as in they
Hmm.
haven't started treating design at par with engineering and other teams in terms of making an
Hmm.
impact in the product and the experience, right?
Hmm.
And hence, due to the same reasons, I could also see that there are many designers who are trying to build their skill set in different domains of design, like what you do,
Hmm.
3D design, animations, illustrations, and whatnot,
Hmm.
web
Hmm.
design, etc. So when we actually say that becoming a T-shaped creative individual where you have
Hmm.
possess knowledge in different domains of design, you're talking
Hmm.
about niching down on product illustrations, right? So
Hmm.
of course people are scarce. I think one of the reasons that people who do product illustrations or any type of illustrations are scarce is the reason which I mentioned above. So do you think niching down to a level where we just make illustrations for a product would really make an impact in the designer's life, or at least let's talk about it in a financial level. So would the
Hmm.
designer who just do illustrations get paid at par with people who design everything?
That's a really good question, and I think a lot of
Mhm.
sub points to be made there.
Yeah.
So, firstly, like in terms of design, yes, as the smaller companies come up, they definitely not put designs at par with tech. But I think
Hmm.
that this change is, at least I see this change coming slowly, right?
Hmm.
At least with earlier, like it was not even at par, but at
Hmm.
this current moment, some small companies now tend to be like, we need a designer. We cannot survive without a good design, so at least we
Hmm.
need a designer. Next step would
Hmm.
be probably that we need to make it more delightful, and design has to be prioritized over engineering sometimes. So I see a lot of tech companies, the huge players in the market, they have a value for that, and I think that will slowly trickle down to the org and the time to come. The second reason why I see this issue is probably because product design right now is a huge boom, right? It's a
Yeah.
huge boom, and everybody wants to be a product designer, which is great because at the end you have to earn money, right? Product designer roles pay a lot, right? I had friends in NID, and I had asked them what is happening with the placement. So at the end, like a lot of folks are switching to product design jobs
Hmm.
because they are high paying, and the entry is quite, like, the barrier to entry is quite low, and
Hmm.
the skill they are acquiring it quite quickly. Whereas in illustration, if you see, you have to like spend at least, I would say, 3 years
Of
to
course.
to learn tools, to learn skill set, and to constantly reiterate on that,
Hmm.
to a level where you have like got that finish, right? So a lot of folks reach out to me, hey, I want to do product illustration, and my first question is, where is your portfolio? So
Hmm.
and the response is usually, I don't have one because I suck at drawing. So I don't have one, and how much time will it take for me to learn? So so if you are like, if you want to be an illustrator, be an illustrator because you are passionate about it. uh,
Hmm.
don't think that this is like a field which is like quickly rewarding, right? It will
Hmm.
take a lot of time to build those skills, to understand a product. And when we say like the T skill, right, that when we
Hmm.
say the T skill for a product illustration, that has to be illustrations, icons, and then comes the other things that you might want to explore, like motion, which I'm doing these days, and
Hmm.
product design, which I have done in the company. So my
Okay.
core skill set is around product illustrations, iconography, visuals, and then comes other thing. So this is not a field which would probably you would learn in a couple of months, right? It is a very long journey, and you have to be comfortable with that. So
Of course.
that is one part. uh, the second part of your question, I sorry, I forgot the second part, which was around like,
Okay. Having, so when you actually niche down on
huh.
to just product illustrations, getting paid at par with people who have like the knowledge in all domains of design, right? Of course,
Hmm.
they might be paid more. What do you think about it?
I think good roles exist. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're saying there aren't enough roles in this, yes, there won't be many. But
Mm-hmm.
if you are a quality, if you are putting out quality content, if you are a great
Mm-hmm.
designer, or if you have niche in illustration, you will certainly find a role which is high paying.
Okay. Of course.
There is no like lack of roles. uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's no lack of roles, and there is probably no lack of potential. There's a lack of folks, those who want to those who want to take this path, right? There's a lack of
Yeah.
those. So
Yeah.
there exist good roles. You have to like constantly reach out to folks, apply, because like websites exist, like there are so many products. Somebody is doing illustrations and visuals, right? Like, who is that
Mm-hmm.
person? Reach out to that person.
Yeah.
And where there's a company, there is visual design, there is the need of UX icons and
Mm.
illustration. So definitely it is required, right? So it's not that this field is not rewarding. Just because there are less number of roles doesn't mean this field is uh, not rewarding. In fact, if you niche
Mm-hmm.
down on some of these things, uh, you will be like indispensable. uh, Companies will find it hard to replace you, because
Of
not a
course.
lot of folks are in this field. And it is like a really very rewarding field. You just have to constantly work on yourself, put your best work forward, and definitely I feel there's a lot of scope. And once like at a point, UX design or a product design was not considered, but that perception has changed, right?
Yeah.
And with 3D
Of course.
also very trendy at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
this is like going to boom a lot.
Yeah. Totally get it. Totally get it. So, okay. So, talking about financial aspects of being a designer, you do sell artworks on platforms like Culture Shop, Society Six, etc. Right? How's that working for you?
Yeah, it's working great. I'm
Mm-hmm.
majorly associated with Culture Shop more than Society
Mm-hmm.
6. I think a couple of
Mm-hmm.
months, not month, but last year, in I had put some work on Society 6, but I did never like followed up with that or did anything about it. So
Okay.
primarily, I do via Culture Shop. I do
Mm-hmm.
collaborate with them. They take care of, the good thing is that they take care of logistics and everything, and it's a great platform. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the artists that are on the platform. But like when I think about me as an artist who has an online store, I don't think I kind of fit there, in a sense that I would not want to start my shop on my own and ship out my merch,
Okay.
because I feel like that's a lot of work, and that is
Hmm.
probably not what aligns with my personal interest. So
Okay.
which is why I have done like one major collaboration, which is with Culture Shop. The
Hmm.
team is really very amazing, and I had a chance to speak with the founder as well.
Hmm.
So most of the work which I do like personally make, I at the end of the month or at the end of a couple of months, I share with them, and whatever
Hmm.
goes through and whatever we mutually like, that gets listed on Culture Shop.
Amazing, amazing, man. Of course, Culture Shop is like careful about curating quality artworks, so it's not
Yes,
a wonder they
yes.
found you. Yeah,
Yes, I
and
had actually pitched to them when I was in college. Like I was in final
okay,
year only, and I had pitched to them, and it did not go through. So
all
I
right.
was like, okay, not today, but maybe in some time. But yeah, after a couple of years, it happened. So it just felt like a dream come true. Like,
To be represented by Culture Shop. Yeah. Okay.
correct.
All right. Um, so based on the things which we discussed so far, I clearly see that you're not a person who actually wants to go through the hassle of printing stuff, shipping the artworks or image out yourselves.
Hmm.
So let's talk about income streams for designers, right? So how do you think a designer
Hmm.
should plan his streams of income? So do you think they have to do different hustles that actually bring in income from different sources, or do you think it's just fine to have one single income stream that actually takes care of everything, like when we work for a company or something?
So, as a freelancer, definitely you need a lot of streams of income, or at least you
Hmm.
need that recurring client or a long term association that would
Hmm.
keep coming back to you for every, let's say, campaign or uh, every feature that they launch, so to speak. With that being said, if you have figured out like a constant stream of
Hmm.
income, then you can kind of explore like other fields or other passion or other side projects, because that is kind of taken care of at the end. Like everybody has to make money for the survival, right? So
Of course.
once that is set, then you can move on to next step, which is like exploring around. So for me,
Okay.
that is like the constant source of income is like my full-time opportunity. And
Hmm.
after that is established, then after hours when I'm free, that is the time where I don't have to worry about money, or I don't have to worry about the income. Then with
Hmm.
that time I'm free to explore, in a sense that I can work on myself, learn new skills, or I could
Hmm.
probably work on a side project. Then I don't
Okay.
have to think about like a freelancing project, which is why don't take freelancing projects, because they are sometimes very low paying. And
Hmm.
if money is your motive, then it is already taken care of. Then you don't have to spend a lot of time on freelance. So the way I think is like secure your money first, in a
Hmm.
sense, like if you're a freelancer, so getting multiple clients that are recurring, that's a great way. And if you work full time, then it is fine. With the remaining time, you can choose what to do. For me, money is not an issue, so I choose to work on myself, to learn new skills. And yeah, that is pretty much how I go about it.
All right. That is a wonderful answer, man. Okay,
Yeah,
so you know enough about you as a creative individual. Let's talk about your full-time work, and seems like you love it a lot. First of all,
yeah.
are you a product designer who actually designs a product, or you just do illustrations for the product? What exactly is your role at Swiggy?
So on papers, it is a product designer written, like formally written
Mm-hmm.
as product designer. But my
All
actual
right.
role is like designing illustrations and icons throughout the day. So these could be
Mm-hmm.
3D, these could be 2D. This could be working with a product designer, helping them clean up their layout or add delight to their layout. That is the primary work that I do. And
Okay.
sometimes, or like last year I did a project on product design, just to know, like, because if in your career you have to work with product designers, at some point
Mm-hmm.
it's great to do a project or two, just to
Mm-hmm.
understand their skill set, just to understand how they work, so that
Mm-hmm.
uh, so that not you so that you can understand their skills, understand their perspective, the way they think, how they collaborate with PM, and that knowledge will help you as a product illustrator to make better recommendation and understand what they are trying to do. So
Yeah.
so the core work is around making icons, illustrations, onboarding, things like that. And sometimes it's like doing product design as well, but it is very
Okay.
rare.
Okay. So how involved are you in, making decisions when it comes to user experience within the app? So I'm pretty sure, before that, it would be amazing if we can break down the design team structure at Swiggy, the hierarchy or the career ladder or lattices. So do you have a centralized design team at Swiggy? If not, how do you collaborate with the designers from other teams like marketing or brand, etc.?
Yeah, so we have Srinath Rangamani, who is the design
Mm-hmm.
director for Swiggy, and within
Mm-hmm.
that we have team based on like storefront, then delivery side, and then customer side, and search and things like that. So those are breakdown on based on like the functionality and the app. So somebody is just taking care, or somebody, but rather somebody's team is just taking care of the delivery side, and apps related to stores, and just apps related to delivery executives. And then within that there are subdivisions, but I at least for some time, along with Snehal, we were reporting to Srinath directly, so we were like a cross team resource. So essentially, if somebody has a requirement, somebody is working on a project, they will involve us that this is the flow, how it looks like, and we need your help with illustration. We need your recommendation to add delight. So they will come up with either a requirement which is straightforward, that we need to
Mm-hmm.
brand something, or we need to show them a confirmation, or we need to delight them. Then it kind of
Okay.
becomes a brief for us. Then we'll go through the flows and see where exactly we want
Okay.
that visual, and how it's going to be. So it's usually the request is raised, or we are tagged, or sometimes we are just involved in a project, since day one. So for example, Instamart, I had just joined when Instamart was being even conceptualized. So
Mm-hmm.
we were involved in since day zero. Like that was my first assignment. So day
Okay.
zero, so we had to think about how the visuals would look like, what is the style that we are going to follow. uh, we were going to do 3D for the first time in Swiggy. So we were like, how can we come up with great 3D visuals that kind of not just look good, but it kind of balances with the entire user experience, because at the end, if you're putting 3D in a UX flow, you don't want it to overpower the CTA. You don't want it to look like a piece of visual slammed in a user experience or a flow. So we
Yeah.
had to think a lot about that. And yeah, pretty much the process is that. On the second question, like collaborating with marketing and collaborating with other teams like merch, so we
Mm-hmm.
collaborate with merch more than we do with marketing. So a merge team in any organization is responsible for a lot of visuals that you see, like offer pages, and the kind of banners you see on top, on let's say on Flipkart Big Billion Day, all the category pages, landing pages, all the great visuals that you see are done
Mm-hmm.
by these teams. So
Okay.
we kind of collaborate with them a lot, because one when we, let's say, come up with like a branding, we come up with the branding specifically with an intention that this is going to be used in user experience design. But it is not like user experience design is just one part of the app. The other parts are marketing, communication, banners, things like that. So in that case, we have to collaborate with them, understand their requirements, what they want to do, and then kind of put together some guidelines around it, right? So that is the thing. So we collaborate with them on project to project basis. We understand the requirements and we help them come up with quickly come up with a lot of visual. So we provide them with like ready-made color palettes, sometimes patterns that they can use, so that it's easy for them to make the visuals, and at the same times we are taking their help to kind of scale this language across the entire let's say entire comms across marketing and merchandising as well.
Mhm. All right. So, my understanding is that you have four different verticals within the entire user experience of the app, and
Hmm.
you have a common team of illustrators who design illustrations and icons for all these teams, right? So,
Yeah.
who takes care of branding of the product and as a brand as a whole?
That's a good question. So so Snehal used to be my manager. She
Hmm.
so apart from having a core overlap in terms of icons illustration, product illustration,
Hmm.
she had her own strength and I have my own strength. She was really
Hmm.
good with type design. If you check her work out, she's an amazing type designer, and she was
Yeah.
really good with brand design. So for Instamart,
Hmm.
uh, she was the one who came up with the color palette, that this is how it's going to look like, whereas I am good with 3D design. So I was able to quickly work with her and scale it to 3D language. So it was more like a collaboration where we know our strengths, and we kind of use and leverage those strengths. So if there's a
Hmm.
project that needs some, which is a bit brand focused, then she would probably pick it up. If it is a
Okay.
bit more 3D focused, I would kind of pick it up. But at the end of the day, we would like sync up with each other to get inputs and how we can make it better. So it's usually us taking care of the brand, but it is a collaboration effort, and inputs from all stakeholders are taken in.
Okay. All right. So you have a fluid brand team. So
Yes.
designers just jump in. All right. All right. And what about the what we see on social media? So the marketing front, right? Um,
Hmm.
how is the design for marketing is taken care of at Swiggy?
So marketing is like something different. So even let's say when you say social media, that is kind of a separate team itself. And when you say
Okay.
marketing, that is also a slightly different team itself. So marketing would
Of
also
course.
take care of like the positioning of the brand. They come up with
Mm-hmm.
witty copies, and sometimes even I think like, why couldn't I think of this? So they'll take
Of
care
course.
of the mailers that will go out, how the prints would look like. So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the collaboration is in house, sometimes it's done via agency. It depends
Okay.
on project to project basis, but
Okay.
we do tend to give out or at least collaborate on the colors and the brand, not brand guidelines but a brand kit, um,
Okay.
with them,
Okay.
and provide them with the assets. Then they take it
Mm-hmm.
up and add their own magic
Mm-hmm.
in terms of copywriting, and take it forward to next step.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, man. Uh, since you're on the user experience front of a B2C app, that's being
Hmm.
used by thousands of people on a daily basis, right? What do
Hmm.
you think is the most important thing a designer has to consider while designing for B2C?
The most important thing I think is the audience itself. Like,
Hmm.
who are you designing this for? What is your customer? uh, which city is your customer from? What are their habits? What is your customer looking for? So that sort of answers a lot of questions for not just like uh, product design, but for anyone. Like, Even
Hmm.
for product illustration, I have seen a drastic change when I came from Flipkart to Swiggy. So that is, I think, one of the things that really helps you align on most of the decision,
Hmm.
at least within the org, because everybody is working towards making a great product, and the product is going to be used by someone. So that is
Hmm.
something which you can use to align everybody on.
Okay.
So you need to understand who your audience is. You need to understand what are their habits, what do they want out of your app, how
Hmm.
do they use your app. And I think that
Okay.
answers a lot of question, at
Yeah.
least for me.
Yeah, of course. And how is the art direction or the creative direction for the entire app as a tool or a product being taken care of? So when we actually see the flow, the photographs of food items from all these restaurants, so
Yeah.
do you take care of that, or the restaurants do that, or how do you bring that as a how do you club this with your tool, the product?
So this is usually taken care by the other team. So we are not involved with these
Hmm.
teams. So
Okay.
I would not have much context about that.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, they are given some guidelines as to how can you make your items look better, and
Hmm.
how you photograph them. That is one
Okay.
of the things that we kind of help them in order to kind of evangelize a good design or a good photography. That is something done, but I'm not
Okay.
sure about the full context, who the team is and how it is done.
All right, man. Thanks for being honest about it. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I have a follow-up question with what we discussed earlier. So, how do you
yeah.
know that your illustrations or the visuals that you're working
Hmm.
and implementing in the app are working or not working? As in, how do you evaluate the impact of the illustrations that you create for the app? How do you know people like it, or how do you know you have to change something that's already exists in the app?
So some of the things you can track, some of the things you can't track. So we have to be
Yeah.
kind of be aware about what can change, what cannot change.
Hmm.
uh, with that being said, illustration is some of the things where you can't actually measure the impact directly,
Hmm.
but that can sort of come out in user research studies, and that can come out in when you're doing interviews with the customers. So that can kind of help you understand that what kind of visual resonates with my audience,
Hmm.
and what kind of visual would speak and connect with them directly. So for example, a lot of product illustrations sometimes are from like a stock website, and these
Hmm.
are these are not at all Indian, right? These are not at all Indian. They are like same proportions, almost same skin tone, western clothes, western color palette, and the clothes also look same. So if you're
Yeah.
using something like that, it is not, nobody will say that this is wrong. Nobody will say, or there won't be a metric that can point out directly that this is not working. But as a
Okay.
designer, as an illustrator, you would need to understand this is not going to work for an Indian audience. Which is why,
Yeah.
like in Flipkart, we did something around this where we started using Indian avatars. So
Hmm.
we did some research on what works, what doesn't work, what the customers
Hmm.
think about that. And it was not like a full research focus purely on illustration, but I used to gather insights from the researchers those who are going for other products, and I used to ask them, did they say anything about visual? Do you have any inputs for that? And I used to write all of those down so as to get a sense of what exactly the visual illustrations are going to work or not work. So product
Okay.
illustration, in that sense, is sometimes you cannot measure directly with metrics, uh, like you can measure a CTA of a button and say if it is working or not. But it is usually like a delight factor, and usually you can track it by user interviews and user studies. So
Hmm.
that was one of the projects which I did, where we aim to make Indian specific avatars, and which is very specific to Indian audience. There's like inclusivity in terms of not just like color and skin tone, but also in the body proportion. So you'll see some
Mhm.
of them are rounded, some of them are bald, some of them have a very defined figure, and that was like one of the starting points. And I was really happy with the project, because that was the first time like we felt like this is something that needs to be solved, because otherwise any other website, like, I mean, I as an illustrator, when I open a lot of websites, I know exactly where this visual is taken from.
Of
Exactly,
course.
no change. I know this exactly where which website this is picked from, and that is if you don't put like differentiate yourself in terms of like the illustration, you will just look like some other website, right?
Of course, yeah. Of course, there's no number that can be tagged with the delight which you're delivering. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
there's no
a
number that can be tagged,
yeah.
and on top of that, illustration, like if you're not making it your specific, if you don't have an in-house illustrator,
Mhm.
then probably not for a startup, I would say, but when you become a huge organization, then it is probably time to think about these small delight factors. So
Okay.
nobody, it will never come in metrics, but where you can
Mhm.
find it is probably on Twitter, somebody saying that this is such a absolutely delightful experience that I found today,
Yeah.
and this is such a nice touch that has been added to app. So these are the small or key victories that help you understand that you are probably on the right path.
Of course.
So
Of
that
course,
is
man.
like
Yeah.
how you kind of track. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's by yourself that we need to be uh, very inclusive. We need to speak to our audience using this specific illustration style. uh, so that these are some of the things which will not be pointed out directly by somebody or by metrics. This is
Yeah.
something to do with what you think, what is the value that you think is of the design and illustrations. And yeah, that is something which has to come within.
An instinct. Yeah. Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. So, let me follow up on what you said about, you know, working with Flipkart, right? So, working
Yeah.
on Flipkart. So, this, see, I'm right now seeing your LinkedIn where you described what you actually did at Flipkart. So, it reads like this: working
Yeah.
on Flipkart illustration guide and icon repository to be used across the org for internal and external design teams, gathering, collecting, and
Hmm.
sorting loose illustrations and iconography under a central library with the design language system or TLS for easy access and
Hmm.
browsing for designers to quickly use to reduce dependencies and make plug and play systems. So
Hmm.
this I feel is like really important. This is a problem that
Hmm.
many early stage design teams struggle with. So the reason is
Hmm.
that either we don't find the time or we don't have the project and time management skills required to do this.
Hmm.
So how did you
Hmm.
and your team handle this at Flipkart? How did you, how did you successfully manage to build a library for the DLS?
That's I mean, so honestly, like it was really very hard,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could be giving a very very beautiful answer for that, but the reality of any project is that it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of back and forth that
Of course.
always keeps happening. Like, you do something, and then you show it to the team, you'll get like 100 inputs, and then you have to constantly think about it. So because at the end, the product illustration library is not for somebody but the designers itself. So I have to constantly check with them, does it help you, does it work with you? And I think to be very honest about it, the first year in my Flipkart, I did not probably think about this much. I was like just catching up with the work. It was a lot of work. So first year went like we just have to work on the requirements. We have to work on the project. The second year was somewhere where I felt like, okay, this has to be addressed, and I had worked with my manager that, see, this has to be done, and we were kind of on board. So then I started putting together. So one of the reasons you need is because everybody is working on their project. right? So there's nobody central who's taking care of illustrations and icons, and there is going to be reusability.
Of course.
So if somebody makes a search icon and he's just using it for himself, somebody else need it, they don't know who has the search icon. They're not
Yeah.
going to ping on Slack and saying "Ki, does anybody has a search icon?" They'll just probably go through a online website. They'll go through Noun Project or something, and they'll just download it and be done with that. When that happens, and this happens usually in bigger, as your organization gets bigger, when that happens,
Yeah.
uh, for you it might not be like something, but for a customer they might feel like the visual is like there is inconsistency. Of course they will not notice like a search being different or having rounded stroke. What they'll notice that probably like for a payment methods you are using like a credit card icon, and then when you go in somewhere else, then there is also payment method, but you are not using a credit card icon, you are using something else. So in their mind they have, if they have associated credit card with payment method and that is not being replicated somewhere else, then that happens to be an issue. So you are using
Yeah.
different icons for different connotation, you're using different visual for a different category, and it is not consistent throughout the app. That
Mhm.
happens to be the problem, and that has to be tackled. So somebody, there has to be a one person who kind of overlooks these things and makes the recommendation. So for example, in Flipkart, what we did was for all the empty states, right? Some of these were already done by Aisha Rana. So she used to work at Flipkart long time back as a product illustrator.
Mhm.
Uh, so post which like a lot of people don't read copy. That is some also some of the issue. So how could we say that this is error state or this is not working or something is wrong, and how do we differentiate that? So good ways that for illustration that are happy, your order is placed, you need a box icon, those could be colored. But when there is something wrong happened, there is going to be gray plus red. So that kind of association builds up, that gray plus red means something is off. This is not a regular illustration, something is off. And that has to be maintained consistently, because for you it might be just a project and you just use a visual what you like, but for a customer it's not a project, they just see it as an entire app. So throughout
Yeah.
the app that has to be consistent, and
Yeah.
that is how you kind of build like this is where the starting point is, and why do we even need a central illustration system for that. And once that is done, it is usually a different process for every org, in a sense that if you already have a lot of illustration, which was the case with Flipkart, then the process would be different as compared to somebody who just wants to start product illustration system for the first time. So in Flipkart there existed already a lot of visuals. So like it was all about just collecting everything. So it was all about putting all the boxes that you could find on illustration, on product illustrations of Flipkart, and putting them together, putting the context together, where exactly are all these being used. So it is
Mm.
like the process is something like collect, organize, sort, and then you kind of put them together. So you collect all, you see where the context is being used, then you sort in terms of like what could be grouped together, what are the common patterns that you see, and organize in a sense that everything has to be grouped logically. So all the boxes come together, all the green ticks come together, all the confetti states come together, all the offer illustrations or discount tags come together, and then you start to see what could be clubbed together. So if both of them are similar, you can just use one of them, and that is how you
Okay.
tend to clean the app, or you tend
Mhm.
to clean the illustration. And then you kind of make just one file where you say ki, hey, just pick this up, if you need anything find it here, if you don't find it, then you put a request to me that you need something like that with the context, and I will take this up. But
Okay.
this sounds all very easy when I say it, but trust me,
Yeah.
it is very very hard to do it. And there had been immense learning from me in terms of what worked, what did not work.
Hmm.
And it is hard, but at the end you have to do it, you have to collaborate, and you have to work with multiple folks. And yeah, that is the only way forward.
Thanks for sharing the detailed answer, man. That pretty much covered everything about designing something for a DLS. And I have a
Hmm.
follow up question again. Uh,
Hmm.
so this has worked because Flipkart already had existing illustrations and stuff, right? Say for example,
Hmm.
you are in a design team that actually designs stuff for a early stage startup. So
Hmm.
how do you think the designer should collect the keywords or the concepts that will be frequently used? How to identify them first thing, and once we
Hmm.
design it, how do you deliver it to the stakeholders involved? Say for example, for a designer it might just be the Figma file or something, and
Hmm.
if at all you
Hmm.
want to share it with the marketing specialists, the content writers, and people who are not designers, so how do you
Hmm.
redirect them to one particular place where they can pick up things? And what's your take on that?
Hmm. Okay. So, first question: if the company is just starting up, I think when a
Yeah.
company is just starting up, their focus is on like the app, the engineering, and the
Mhm.
ops. That is
Yeah.
operations. If like it's a delivery company, so they'll probably focus on who is going to deliver and what the system will. So at that time, I
Yeah.
think the priority is sometimes not even design, right? But that
Hmm.
is rapidly changing, and it's changing for good. And if it is design, so it is not that illustration is something their priority. But
Yeah.
regardless, icons, navigation, core icons is any day required. No
Hmm.
app uh, is there which doesn't require that. So uh, the idea is that if you start day one onwards to document them well, then as your organization scales up, it will be easy to maintain. Like
Hmm.
that is the simple answer, that in your early stage onwards, if you are
Yeah.
if you maintain it, and
Hmm.
then it is very easy to maintain it forward.
Yeah.
In terms of illustration, I don't see that being a priority in the stage first.
Hmm.
But that is not
Okay.
an issue.
Yeah.
You can
No, I
use
mean,
stock illustration.
if at all the team decides to build one, right?
uh,
What is the step by step process of finding the right keywords from which stakeholders?
it's Yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually an exercise which you do with your key stakeholders,
Hmm.
like let's say CEO and the marketing folks, and a couple of others, where you say that this is we are going to build an illustration system, and we want to define
Hmm.
what it is. So it's usually a mind map, where let's say if it is like a candle making firm, just a
Hmm.
hypothetical example. So
Okay.
you would kind of branch out from candle making, so you will say scents, perfume, and you will say opportunities. So opportunities could be date night, therapeutic, and things like that. And then you kind of come up with these themes, and you identify what all are the ways you can use these themes and these metaphors, to send out a message. And what is, again, like I said, what is your customer? So you would also need to know who you are targeting. So if you are a candle making company, you are targeting specifically for couples and things like that, so your brand language will kind of change. Whereas if you're using
Yeah.
it for therapeutic purpose and meditative purpose, then that will be like pastel colors, that would be very soft, subtle animations, very smooth illustrations. So that kind of defines your illustration style in a thematic way,
Hmm.
where what is the theme, what kind of visual metaphors you would kind of use. So for example, let's say you say we are running out of stock for this particular candle. A great example
Hmm.
would be like a full burnt out candle which is melted till the bottom. But if you want to say, oops, something went wrong, so the candle has fallen and the wick is like extinguished, and the wax has kind of flown. So
Hmm.
this is like, what is the subject here is the candle, and you're using it to communicate some other thing. So it
Yeah.
will depend on what exactly the theme is going on and what are the metaphors. So what I like to do is think of all the metaphors related to that theme that I could use. So candle is one of them, wick is one of them, a lighter could be a one of them,
Yeah.
right? Essential oils bottle could be one of them. So this is an example where you kind of think about what is the possibility that you could do. And then
Hmm.
for every app there exists some specific illustration that will always be there, like
Yeah.
network not found, it will always be there because it's running on tech.
Okay.
Something went wrong will always be there. And if it is like a cart service or if it's a retail, there will be like empty cart.
Hmm.
Payments is there, something went wrong with payments. If you have a balance, like if you have a wallet within uh, zero balance, that is some
Hmm.
of the things which will always be there. So
Of course.
if you're starting there, you already have a place that where you can apply these illustrations. So
Yeah.
starting thinking that we have to apply here, this is where my product is, this is what kind of audience that we have, this is like the visual metaphors that you can think of. Once you have the
Hmm.
metaphors or the objects ready, in a sense that you know this is the object I can use,
Hmm.
you can then come up very creative way to think about like how can I denote this, how can I denote extra, or how can I denote something went wrong, how can I denote network. And then once you do that, then it's all about like experimenting, putting them in
Yeah.
context, checking if it is working, checking with stakeholders how it is working or not. Which brings me to the second question, like how do you like kind of deliver it to other folks. And this is like this is something which I learned in Flipkart towards second year, is making decks, uh, uh, right? Putting a presentation together and documenting it really well. So
Mm.
first year it was all about crafting. Second year it was about learning these skills in an org, like how do you collaborate with other teams. So they not everybody would have access to Figma or your file, and even if they have, they'll just see a lot of visuals lying around, they don't know how to make sense out of it. So if
Yeah.
you are if you were to collaborate and pass on something to other team, how on earth would you do that? And the simple answer is like Google Drive and presentation deck. That works any day. That works
Yeah.
any day. And when I say documentation, it need not necessarily be like a presentation. It could be like a Notion page. um,
Hmm.
but it just has to be written, and written in a sense that you have to put all the context and thought process that you have put behind. so
Yeah.
so usually it is usually like you make that document which is self sufficient, in a sense that nobody has to reach out to you to understand what is this. They should
Mm.
understand where this project originated, why is this being originated, what were the thought process, how did you approach it. So you would kind of mention every information that you could have. And that happens also with when you are delivering something to the marketing team as well. And even in Swiggy, when we are delivering something to the merch, right, we
Hmm.
put an extensive list of like guidelines that can help them understand the visuals better. Because if you give
Okay.
something to somebody as a as a deliverable, then you also have to ensure that you also put together a guideline so as to how they should use it.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things. And also one of the things which I learned was to pitch it differently to other folks. So for example, if I have a animation, right, if I have, let's say, if I have a animation that I have to pitch that we need this. So for a product person, I would probably pitch it in a sense that I'll make him understand how it's going to help my customers, right? How it's going to add more delight. For an engineer, I might pitch it differently, that hey, this is not going to be a GIF, it's going to be a lottie. If we implement this technical capability, we can add this lottie somewhere else as well. And since this is a lottie, it will not require much effort from your side, and we have a control over it. So you need to understand what the person in front of you thinks like, like and how can you collaborate with them? So I might not understand numbers or business numbers
Yeah.
well, but I can
Hmm.
understand visual as well. So
Yeah.
similarly, an engineering folk might not see animation just as animation, but he might
Hmm.
also see it like, technically, can we put Lottie? Is it going to be a GIF? Is it going to be a video? How am I going to put it? Similarly, a product person might not just think of it as like an animation, but he might think of it, is it a delight factor?
Hmm.
A UX designer would think, it shouldn't cause much attention to be taken away from a CTA. And that is one of the things you have to think about. So once you know and you read the room in a sense that who this is being addressed, you can
Hmm.
easily understand that how I'm going to pitch this, and how I'm going to make them understand what the point that I'm making.
Yeah.
Right, that is one aspect. And the other is that you have to put the documentation really well. You have to
Hmm.
put together the context so that it is self sufficient for anybody reading, that what are you trying to accomplish, and then present them with the guidelines and provide them with a kit, not just like a Figma file, but probably if like it's a marketing team, so they might require high resolution assets. So the, for example, 3D that I put like a separate library of just individual 3D components or visuals, and I share them with the respective teams along with like a doc, or probably just a mail if it is sometime required, just to be a mail that this is what we are doing, and here is
Okay.
like the plug and play PNGs that you can use. So that
Okay.
makes it easy for, like, that makes the handoff very easy, and that is like very easy for others to also understand.
Yeah. Thanks for giving a detailed answer for that, man. It really helps
Yeah,
to understand from a non-designer's point of view. So it's totally cool. Uh,
yeah,
so you know what, you also worked on Flipkart's games identity design, right?
yes,
So
yes.
how did you identify the tech constraints for low-end devices for smooth performance, and how did you build the visual system for the same?
So Flipkart Games was a really very interesting project, at
Hmm.
least for me, because I had massive learnings from
Okay.
that. Like in terms of a lot of things were in our control. A lot of things like kind of went went off,
Hmm.
and we had to kind of put everything together. But the idea was that since day one, because I had done creative coding myself, I knew
Hmm.
there will be some constraint. So
Hmm.
since the day one only, I knew that this is not going to be easy. So I have to figure out the technical limitations in the first place itself, uh, and I had to be very much on my toes for some of these things, because otherwise later, once the tech capability has been made, you can't make very huge changes to that, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the things with it. So the idea was that we will collaborate with the team once they come up with a core game engine or a core gameplay. So we let them make the core gameplay first. Meanwhile, we were taking care of the branding aspect of it, as to
Hmm.
what it will look like, the cover would look like. and
Okay.
uh, and once they had, like, for snake smash, they had made like a snake just walking through something, and obstacles were like, these were all just blocks, right? So
Yeah.
then is when we started to come in and be like, okay, how can we make it better now? How can we visually, now that the, like, scaffolding or the framework of the tech is done somewhere, now how
Hmm.
can we make it visually appealing? And that is very interesting for me, because we had to have not negotiations, but talk with the team in terms of what is technically possible and not. And this is where one of the project where my understanding of tech really came in handy for me. So for example, initially the blocks were rectangular, so if you were to
Hmm.
move snake around, right, like, so the blocks had to turn also, so that
Yeah.
it looks very motion driven. So one of the
Hmm.
things that was suggested, that these blocks, how much angle to rotate, that has to be calculated, and that might not work for low end devices, so it's more calculation. What was the idea proposed, that we'll make them circle. So they went, so there's no need to recalculate how much rotation because it will look same. So
Right.
that way we kind of said that okay, this is one way we can make it more optimized by making some design changes to it.
Okay.
That was one of the key things that we did. Similarly, in the other game, which was I think yeah, I forgot the name because this was a long time back, but it was like
Okay.
a shooting a Crazy Cannon. Now I remember. Yeah, Crazy
Okay.
Cannon. This was one of the things where we were like the balls that are going to be shot from bottom will be circle only. Otherwise,
Hmm.
if it was of any other shape, let's say a dagger or something like that, we have to like kind of trace the entire shape and see if that collides with it. Otherwise, it will look like it had visually collided, but it has not,
Okay.
according to the logic, because logic is very different as compared to the visual. So we
Hmm.
said we'll put circle only. So these were some of the very key insights or the key decision that we had taken in terms of uh, skinning the project visually. And then once we had some idea and the direction that okay, this is how exactly it's kind of going to look like, this is how the framework is going to look like, then it was
Hmm.
pretty much very easy to put guidelines around that this is always going to be a circle, the background is always going to be like this, it's going to be static and all. And once you have that in place, you have taken care of all the tech aspects. Now you can get as creative as you want with the visuals,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And in some of the, and that was the first time we did like let's do a 3D cover for one of these games. And
Hmm.
I remember there was a lot of discussions around it, but at the end we went with the 3D cover. And even like as simple as like a 3D cover, right? um, though it sounds very easy like a 3D cover, there is also a lot of challenge in that as well, in a sense that there is a lot of mobile phones in the market with different aspect ratio. How do you
Hmm.
even put that PNG? Do you start from bottom and go till top, or do you start from top and go till bottom, or do you start with center to center? I remember having a discussion with my PM, who was Harshvardhan Singh, and the designer, like who was taking care of the UX part, Sanket Chaudhary. We three got in a room and we decided for like half an hour how exactly the placement is going to be. Because when you talk about
Hmm.
low end devices, you have to be really very careful about how you design it. And then we came up
Okay.
with a solution, and then we tested, then it kind of worked. I think we started from bottom only, and then we went till the top. So we put the name of the game in such a way that even in the smallest devices it would be visible, and for the bigger devices you will see some sky visuals that kind of bleeds up. So that was
Okay.
the way we solved it. So it was a really very interesting project, I would say. Lots of ups and downs, but it was like fun in terms of the visual and the engineering that went behind it.
Okay. All right. That is like really insightful, man. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah,
Not many get to have a hands-on experience in optimizing for different mobile devices and low-end devices. That is a
yeah,
wonderful experience. Yeah.
yeah.
And so we discussed about the design team structure at Swiggy, right? So what about
Hmm.
Flipkart? How was it there?
Flipkart also, it was kind of pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have head of design,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would in parallel would have research head, and then research would have its own department. And within the design there would be multiple pods, somebody taking care of the engagement part. And at that time it was being led by Varun Dhanda, who was my manager at Flipkart, right? And
Okay.
we had a bunch of team within us. And I was in the engagement part, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because Varun comes from a visual design background, right? So I was reporting to him, but I was like a cross resource team. And
Okay.
not within core product design. This is the core product design. Then we also have like again merchandising team, those who take care of banners and ads and visuals that come on Flipkart, and that's a very separate
Mm-hmm.
team. They have copywriters too
Okay.
and content writers. So that's a very separate team. So
Okay.
it is somewhere similar, but it has its own differences when you get to the nitty gritty.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that, man. Okay, enough about the present stuff that's happening. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
future now. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So you're on the Foundation app, right? Are you planning to get into the NFT world? How do you think the metaverse is going to change the game for designers and the creative community?
I think definitely it's interesting. I had gotten a foundation invite actually last year, uh,
Hmm.
thanks to my friend Rahul, um,
Hmm.
and uh, and I kind of lost it. Like I signed up using MetaMask and I forgot that like the seed
Password.
phrase.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I had written it somewhere and I just forgot it. And then recently
All
I was
right.
like, probably I'll do an NFT, and I found that it is not linked. So luckily, thankfully, somebody on Instagram helped me with the invite, and I'm back. This time I've written it everywhere. So yeah, that is that is a funny story related to that. I do plan to
Okay.
make NFT, but like I said, there is so much to do, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So much to do, so many things to learn, so many work to do, that
Yeah.
sometimes I don't find time. But it's
Yeah.
okay. I think NFT is here to stay.
Hmm.
It's not a bubble. So I'm not in a hurry that let's just do it immediately. I'll
Yeah.
take my own time. I don't work in a sense, like I don't tend to pick because it's very hyped up.
Hmm.
Because if I try to do so, I will definitely end up putting a very low quality work out there. So
Of
I
course.
might
Yeah.
not. So I would rather not do than to put like a low quality work and feel sad about it. So
Okay.
it is here to stay. And with
Hmm.
like metaverse coming up and things like that, it's just going to be a boom for NFTs, for 3D design, and these are here to stay.
Okay. All right. And what are your future plans as a designer, man? Where do you see yourself in, like, say, 10 years from now? Are you
Oh,
going to specialize as a coder or a designer? If both, how are you planning to travel with legs on both the boats?
see, for the next, I don't know, for 10 years, that is very
Yeah,
far.
very long. Yeah,
uh,
at least
yeah,
say,
it's
for example, 5 years.
for 5 years. I'm very clear about what I want to do, and I'm very
Okay.
open to it. I'm still
Hmm.
in my young age. I'm
Hmm.
not rushing to, like, I'm not rushing for a specific thing in my head. Everything
Hmm.
will kind of follow. Like even in career, like uh, you know, the practical aspect is like the primary one is money, right?
Yeah.
So I think that will follow. My aim at the moment is to learn as much as I can,
Hmm.
learn as much as I can, make my skill set as strong as I can, gather as many experiences that I can in this industry before
Hmm.
kind of settling down. I love craft, right? Like I love craft. I don't like I cannot, like I don't think I would make as a good manager as I would like a good design, like a mentor or somebody who can teach you skill set. So
Hmm.
I do think I would want to go towards an IC role.
Hmm.
I do feel like I have more to contribute in terms of my core skill set. So that is one thing in terms of future that I'm sure about. The other thing
Okay.
is, like, I really want to learn at the moment, because my like in career, somebody told me like that it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. So
Of
it
course.
sounds cheesy sometimes, like these quotes sometimes sound cheesy, but when you really understand what exactly it means, it's just life changing for you sometimes, right? So for me, last year this was like kind of life changing in the sense that I got to talk to a couple of designers from outside India, and that has given me
Hmm.
a very good perspective on the career and go after. So for next 5 years, if you ask, I will still be experimenting and making my skill set as strong as I could. And post that, I would kind of evaluate on what are my really strongest key strength, or what where I could like probably contribute the most, and then I will try to work only on that. But with that being said, I'm not I'm not trying to make a switch from illustrations and visuals, and graphics will always be the core of whatever I do. Everything
Okay.
will be around it only, with this being the
Okay.
core. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, man. I really hope
Yeah.
you crack it in like 5-10 years. You will.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Yeah, hopefully I
So
should.
let's talk about your hobbies and what you do when you're not actually working.
I'm a very boring person. I
I see a lot of books
like
behind you. You
folks.
don't seem like a boring person at all.
Some of these I had read in college.
Okay.
So some of these I had read in college, and a lot of these I want to read, and but I can't have enough time. So like I'm a very boring person in a sense that I don't like to go out as much. I don't like to go out to loud parties. I prefer like one-on-one conversations, and that I think
Okay.
are really very meaningful. In my
Okay.
free time, which I usually don't get, in my free time you would find me illustrating something, or coming up with some ideas, or
Mhm.
trying to read a book, or just watching something on YouTube.
Okay.
That is like what my kind of free time looks like.
All right. All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that. Uh, so
Yeah.
that is the entire set of questions I had in mind for you. Do you want to add
Yeah.
anything or say anything to the audience?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I would just want to say that if you love uh,
Hmm.
what you do, and specifically if you love illustrations, do follow this path. This path is equally rewarding, and don't be shy of it. It takes time, but you have to just constantly hit it. You constantly have to try to be better, and reach out to folks. Yeah, it always works, right? You just have to reach out to a lot of folks. Only 10% probably would reply, but
Hmm.
that would be worth it, right? So if you want to say that, yeah, I love illustration but I cannot draw, uh, then just draw. Like, there's no other way to do this, right? It's all about
Yeah.
practice. So don't shy away from it. Constantly keep learning. There will be a day when you will be better, and you will easily see the progress that you have made over the last couple of months, weeks, whatever. But
Hmm.
don't shy away thinking that this is something which I can't do. You can do it, and there is always help around, right? You can reach out to
Yeah.
folks on Instagram. You reach out to them via their emails. The world has been brought together, and has been made smaller via social media. So you will get help if you ask for it. So that is not, and that shouldn't be an excuse. But if you're really passionate about uh, visuals and illustration, which I see a lot of folks are, do chase after it. Yeah, that is the only thing I think I would want to say.
All right. Dear audience, ask and you shall receive, is what Shivam is
Yes,
saying. All right.
yes,
All right.
that's the mantra.
So, all right. So this has been a really wonderful conversation, man. The past 1.5 hours, it just flew by. The kind of insights you brought to the table today, it's really amazing, and it's amazing to see uh, you grow as a designer in the past 2 years. The experience and whatever
Yeah.
you have shared actually speak for itself. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us today to be a part of this podcast. I really, really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
it was an absolute pleasure for me as well to speak to you. And so, thank you for
Yeah,
this amazing session. I hope this was
yeah.
helpful.
Of course, man. Of course.